Today on Pots and Trowels we're going to be planting potatoes and onions, and that's brought to you with the support of Mr Fothergill's Cobra and Allett. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Well, here we are now, third week of April, and as you can see, not a lot's happening actually in our vegetable plot. I know in some areas where it's been much milder, people have got a bit of a head start, but certainly up here in North Yorkshire, we've had it pretty cold over the last few weeks. The soil just hasn't been warm enough to plant. We've had some pretty heavy frost. Only just over a week or so we had -6. So as a result, I've been hanging back. It's always better to wait a little bit and be later, because plants generally catch up when the soil's warm, and a good indicator that the soil is warming up is when you start to see annual weeds germinating over cultivated ground. That tells you that it's warm enough so you can get your plants and your seeds and your potatoes and onions and that type of thing in. So these will catch up even though I'm a week or two later than I would normally be. So what we're going to do is plant some potatoes. I'm going to start with the early varieties, and then we're going to put some main crops in 2 or 3 weeks time, and these are the ones that normally take about 13 weeks from planting to harvesting. This is a variety, a fairly recent variety called Casablanca, that produces really nice potatoes, baby potatoes, those new potatoes. So, you know, about 3 months time we can be lifting these. So ground preparation, the ground has been composted from our compost bin. You can see the remains of some of it on the surface, and that's been cultivated in. You know, you could rotivate it or work it in with a fork. We want a nice weed-free, friable surface. And the other thing that we do need to do is to give them a feed. Although we've put compost on the ground, there isn't enough nutrient value in homemade garden compost to feed them through the growing season. So we have to give them a bit of a helping hand, just like us. You know, we need to be eating little and often. So what I'm going to do is, I've already put my string line down. I'm going to just sprinkle a little bit of fertilizer. This is a general fertilizer, Growmore, which is what we call a balanced fertilizer. This is 7 nitrogen, 7 phosphate and 7 potash, so it will give all round healthy growth. But you can buy specific potato fertilizer, you could use bloodfish and bone, whatever you want. And all I'm going to do is just sprinkle a little along the row, about that density, and that is more than enough. And this takes about 3 to 4 weeks to actually start and work dissolving the soil. So by the time my potatoes start to grow, the nutrients will be there for them. And all I'm going to do then is just using my fork, just make sure that the soil is level for planting, and it's just working in that fertilizer very simply like that. Okay, so it's in contact with moist soil. That's important in order for it to start and dissolve. And then potatoes, I've got them here. These have been just started to chit, as we can see. These have been in a cool, light place, and we've just started to get a little bit of growth there from the eyes. So they're perfect for planting, and we want to plant these varieties, new ones, about 12 inches apart. The main crop, which get bigger, I'll probably go about 15 inches, but these 12 inch, 30 centimetres. So I've put a line there to mark my boundary. So I'm going to go in about a foot from the edge. Now you could measure these, but to be honest, I'm just going to guess it. I reckon that's about a foot. So I'm just going to space my potatoes on the ground. Some of these are a little bit big actually. This is how they came in the bag. So we're going to space these along nice and evenly. Just put them on the surface. We'll just get one more in there. And then it's very simply a case of planting them. And it's just using a trowel. Sorry, Jill, I'm this end. Using a trowel, we want to be about 4 inches deep. Some trowels have measurements on, this one has, but you can see about 4 inches deep. Push that in, cover it over. Simple as that. And then I've got a cane to mark it at one end, a label at the other. Make sure that any sprouts are facing upwards. Give them a bit of a head start. So we've got the sprouts there at the top, so they're facing upwards, and then they'll grow through the soil. And once I've got this row in, I will run my fork along it to take my footprints out, move my line further along here, and I'm going to leave 2 feet this time between the rows. So foot between the potatoes, 2 feet between the rows, put the line down, do exactly the same, fork fertiliser and plant, and I'm going to put 2 or 3 rows in, and then I'll meet you across by the onion bed and I'll show you how to plant the onion sets. Just before I plant the onions, just to show you here, this is where we've got the strawberries. We've got 3 rows here. And what I did about a month ago is just cover the top dozen or so plants in this row with this cloche. Very simple, open at the ends and gaps in between. But it's amazing how just that little bit of extra protection has brought those on. And they are now flowering and the flowers are fully open. 1 or 2 flowers have developed on the others here. But because these have been exposed, you can probably see that they're black in the middle. They've been frosted. So even a very simple cloche will keep the frost off. That won't make a strawberry now because it's frosted. So just a little tip there if you are growing them in the future. So this is where the onions are going to be. This has also been composted. Onions like a good rich soil. I've put a little bit of fertiliser down, and I've just again, using a rake this time, I want it to be a finer, almost like a seed bed with these, raking that along. Rake in the ground so I don't trip on it. I'm using a measuring board here, but again, likewise, you can use, if you want to, a string line, and I'm planting onion sets. Not too late to put them in, still plenty of time. These have just started to sprout a little bit, but they'll be fine. And again, because the soil is warm now, these will grow away nice and fast. So any little bits we take off, and these are going to be spaced 6 inches apart. So I've made this so I've got 6-inch marks on it. And what I'm going to do is to plant these, because some people just push them down into the soil, but then the blackbirds pull them out. So I like to use a trowel and actually plant them. So I'm going to make just a little hole and put them in so that only the very tip of that miniature onion bulb is showing, and that makes it more difficult for the blackbirds to pull them out. And it means that the base of the onion here, what we call the root plate, is going to be in contact with moist soil, and it will root much faster. So really simple, 6 inches apart. You could do them in grids if you want to, and that's it. And then within a week or so's time, we'll start to see a shoot, and then by the summer we're going to get lovely onions from these. So I've got this row to finish off. Well, thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and if you're going to be at the Harrogate Spring Flower Show over the next few days, please come along and see me. I'll be on the grow stage doing talks and demos and answering questions. Next time we'll be back in the veg plot planting cabbages and sowing root crops, so we'll see you then. Bye.